On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched a massive joint air campaign against Iran, beginning with a decapitation strike that killed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Within the first week, coalition forces struck more than 3,000 targets across Iran and destroyed 43 Iranian warships. B-2 stealth bombers dropped dozens of 2,000-pound bunker-busting bombs on buried ballistic missile launchers, which the U.S. Central Command says reduced Iranian missile attacks by 90%. Israel's military chief announced they had carried out 2,500 strikes using more than 6,000 weapons. The White House indicated the campaign could run 4 to 6 weeks, though the Pentagon declined to give a specific timeline. This is the largest U.S. military operation in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. Iran's response was not limited to defending its own territory. Tehran launched missile and drone strikes not only against U.S. and Israeli targets, but also against Gulf states hosting American military bases, including Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Azerbaijan. 6 U.S. servicemen have been killed. But the most devastating element of Iran's retaliation was economic. Attacks on energy infrastructure in the Gulf and threats to close the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of global oil supply passes daily, sent shockwaves through energy markets. Hezbollah in Lebanon joined the fight on March 2, firing on northern Israel and opening a dangerous second front. In response, Israel expanded strikes into Lebanon, killing at least 217 people and displacing over 100,000. The human toll has been staggering. At least 1,332 civilians have been killed in Iran in the first 8 days, with schools, hospitals, and critical infrastructure destroyed. One of the most devastating incidents occurred on the first day, when around 150 schoolchildren were among 165 people killed as a school in the southern city of Minab was struck. The World Health Organization has identified 13 health facilities in Iran that have been hit. Iran's healthcare system, already strained by years of sanctions, is now overwhelmed. Before the war, basic food prices had already risen sharply, with eggs up 19% and cooking oil up 50% year over year. The Iranian government shut down internet access on February 28, cutting millions of people off from essential information. The Strait of Hormuz has become the most consequential battleground of this war, not for military reasons, but economic ones. 20 million barrels of oil normally transit this narrow waterway every day. Since the war began, tanker traffic has dropped by 70%, with crude tanker transits falling from an average of 24 vessels per day to just 4 on March 1. Hundreds of ships are stranded on both sides. The benchmark freight rate for supertankers hit an all-time high of $423,000 per day, a 94% increase. European gas prices surged 50% after Qatar halted production following Iranian drone attacks. China has entered separate negotiations with Iran to secure safe passage for its oil shipments through the strait. The financial markets have delivered a clear verdict. The Dow Jones dropped nearly 800 points in a single day and finished the week down 3%, its worst week since April. The S&P 500 fell 2% for the week. But it is not just oil. The combination of surging energy costs and a weak U.S. jobs report has revived fears of stagflation, a toxic economic scenario where growth stalls while prices keep rising. This leaves the Federal Reserve in an impossible position. Raising interest rates would fight inflation but crush an already weakening economy, while cutting rates would boost growth but fuel even higher prices. Oxford Economics projects Eurozone growth could be reduced by 0.1% with inflation rising 0.5%. One of the primary justifications for the strikes was Iran's nuclear program. Yet the reality revealed by the International Atomic Energy Agency is more nuanced than the political narrative. IAEA Director Rafael Grossi confirmed that Iran had enriched uranium to 60% purity, far beyond civilian needs. However, the agency's inspectors explicitly stated they had not found evidence of a coordinated Iranian program to manufacture nuclear weapons. The Natanz enrichment facility suffered significant damage to its entrance buildings, making the underground facility inaccessible, but the IAEA confirmed no radiological release occurred. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov warned that the strikes could actually accelerate nuclear proliferation, arguing that forces will emerge in Iran in favor of acquiring a nuclear bomb. Despite close ties with Iran, neither Russia nor China has offered military intervention beyond diplomatic statements. They jointly requested an emergency UN Security Council session and condemned the strikes. Putin called Khamenei's assassination a cynical violation of all norms of human morals. China described it as a grave violation of Iran's sovereignty that tramples on the UN Charter. But words are where the support ends. Russia, bogged down in Ukraine with an overstretched military and sanctions-hit economy, simply lacks the capacity to project power into a new theater. China has taken a pragmatic approach, quietly negotiating with Iran for safe passage of its oil shipments rather than confronting the U.S. Former Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross openly stated that the operation has demonstrated to both China and Russia the power of the U.S. military. The war is deeply unpopular at home. A PBS, NPR, and Marist poll found 56% of Americans opposed the military action, with only 44% in support. An even more striking Reuters Ipsos poll showed just 27% approval. The partisan divide is extreme. 84% of Republicans support the action while 86% of Democrats oppose it. Among independents, roughly 6 in 10 disapprove. Nearly 70% of all Americans say Trump needs congressional authorization to continue, which he does not have. Anti-war protests have erupted across the country. Perhaps most significantly, the war is fraying the MAGA coalition itself, with its anti-interventionist wing expressing disappointment and anger that analysts warn could amplify a Democratic wave in the 2026 midterm elections. The most troubling aspect of this conflict is the absence of a coherent exit strategy. The White House has stated 4 objectives: eliminating Iran's missile threat, destroying its naval capacity, disrupting weapons production, and ending its path to a nuclear weapon. Yet Trump has also demanded Iran's unconditional surrender and suggested he should have a role in choosing the country's next leader. In interviews, Trump has contradicted himself, saying the war was planned for about 4 weeks in one statement, while suggesting it could end in days in another. For regime change to succeed, analysts at Brookings say one of 3 conditions must be met: the regime's security forces must fracture, top leaders must refuse to authorize force, or there must be elite defections. None of these conditions currently exist. U.S. officials have privately warned this could turn Iran into a failed state like post-invasion Iraq. 8 days into this war, the contours of its consequences are already visible. The military campaign has achieved its immediate tactical objectives, degrading Iran's conventional capabilities and eliminating its top leadership. But tactical success and strategic success are not the same thing. The economic damage is global and accelerating. The humanitarian cost is mounting with each passing day. American public support is thin and eroding. International legitimacy is contested. The exit strategy is unclear at best, contradictory at worst. And the nuclear non-proliferation regime, the very thing this war was supposed to protect, may emerge weaker, not stronger. What is clear is that the Middle East after this war will look fundamentally different. The question that remains unanswered is whether the difference will make the world safer or more dangerous.